So welcome back to another episode of Taste Kitchen. I'm your host, Paul Barron, and today's episode here in our kitchen has almost kind of become our private wine cellar of recent. We've had a chance to do our top 10 wines of 2020. If you have not had a chance to check that video out, make sure and check it. We'll leave a link in the description. But also, today's episode, we thought, hey, let's take a little bit of an exploration down a particular category of wine, being Pinot Noir. And it is one of those that pretty much kind of is in the repertoire of almost every wine drinker out here, and also on almost every beverage manager. You've got to have a great and strong Pinot Noir showing. So today we thought, hey, who better than to get here on our show, and that is the sommelier at Paul Hobbs Winery, and that's Mr. Dan Pilkey. Welcome back, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you again, Paul.
Nice to see you. All right, so we're gonna break down the top 10 Pinot Noirs of 2021. Now, this is comprised of basically my 5 list, and then Dan has put his 5 together. And here's the fun thing. Dan sent me his list a little early, but I didn't send him my list. It might actually pay off, because either I'm gonna see a very surprised look on Dan's face, or I'm gonna say, Dan's in agreement. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, we're gonna break down 10 great Pinot Noirs, and we're also gonna taste 2 amazing Pinot Noirs right here who are part of that 10. So make sure and stay tuned for all that part. Now, Dan, let's get into a little bit about Paul Hobbs before we start. One of your wines is in our top 10, and it's also been in the Wine Spectator Top 100. So tell me a little about what's happening over at Paul Hobbs.
So thank you, and absolutely, Paul's been really creating a new vineyard site out in the West Coast, Sonoma, in a small area called Annapolis. And it is relatively a new development vineyard for us. Our first Cuvee, or inaugural vintage, was in 2017. So, technically Paul been working with the fruit since 2011, but we're able to purchase this area, roughly 60 acres, and really starting to build a world-class Pinot Noir and even a little bit of Chardonnay from this site. So I chose this for good reason. It has been critically acclaimed, as you mentioned, so number 51 in Wine Spectator's Top 100, and it's only our second vintage, which is just remarkable.
Great. Yeah.
And number 2, I think this region is very exciting. So technically, both wines that I've chosen today are from this new frontier, the West Coast Sonoma, and it is a great champion for Pinot Noir.
I can't wait to get back out to Napa Valley. There's been so much going on there in Napa that I feel like I'm a little bit detached from that area. Normally, we get a chance to go out and visit Napa at least once a year and get a chance to go see some of the new vineyards and also some of the new strategies that some of the winemakers are doing. So that'll be fun the next time we get a chance to get out there. Let's jump into my number 1, and that is the Résonance Pinot Noir of Willamette Valley 2017. Did you expect that one on my list, or are you thinking, hey, okay?
Not necessarily, but when you bring up Oregon, listen, the Willamette Valley, I was tempted to include a few because I do have some favorites out there. And I think that they produce incredible Pinot. And, as a region, Willamette kind of screaming one voice of great Pinot is very remarkable. I give them a lot of credit, and there's great wine. So Résonance it is, 2017, strong vintage as well, and great winery.
93-pointer. 93-pointer comes in at $35. So this is one of those wines that can be built into your beverage program. If you're out there in the restaurant industry, if you're an enthusiast and you can get your hands on these, this is one of those wines that you can also hold and drink a little later. It's really designed to stick up into your storage and try to build your wine vast inventory. My course is under my stairs. My vast inventory is under my stairs. And one of these days, I keep telling my wife, I said, it's nice and cool and dry in here, so it's a perfect spot for it. So we'll see how things go. If I can keep, I've got it. I added a new section to this area now, where I can get about another 100 bottles in there, and we took out some storage. I put up some new wine racks in there, some new lighting, which lighting's key when you
Yes.
start storing like that. And that's a big deal. Anyway, my number two, this is kind of a lazy pick, but it's one that I drink a lot, and that is the Four Graces. You got to love the Four Graces and what they're doing. The good thing about them, this is the Dundee Hills Reserve, the 2017. And the reason, and I got a chance to kind of be reintroduced to this particular vintage just a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, man, this would be great for my top 5 list this year. What are your thoughts on Four Graces?
Great winery, and even more so, I love Dundee. I think specifically in the Willamette, that is the cornerstone of really great terroir, minerality, soil, et cetera, that express Pinot in a very specific way, and it's palatable, right? I think when you taste a lot of Dundee, there seems to be some hallmarks that are there that are really expressive. So what was the vintage that you mentioned on that?
This is a 2017. It's a 94 point, $40 bottle of wine, another approachable product for if you're an enthusiast out there. And it's one of those that has a really good, if you get into their tasting notes, it'll really help you kind of pick up a lot of the back end. Sometimes I try to pick it up myself, but one thing that always kind of stands out on this one, violet and raspberry aromas. To me, that is the indicative element that you need in a good Pinot Noir is an amazing aroma, whatever it might be, but this one kind of always is fun for me to drink, and my wife loves this one, so it had to make the list.
Excellent, excellent. I like the 217s, and when you talk about aging a Pinot, those are technically already 3 years old.
Ready to go. Right? Yeah, they're ready to go.
And so, that great window, I always tell people between 3 and 6 years, sometimes 3 and 7 years for Pinot Noir, and that is a great comfort level. Can you go longer? Sure. But I think at those windows of drinkability, there's primary fruit flavors, and there's also developmental secondary tones that are starting to take shape.
Yeah, right. I think that's a good tip for anyone if you're an enthusiast and you're buying wine off a menu. A 2017 vintage is amazing. If you can get into the 2016s, okay, now you're getting in the sweet spot for at least for 2021 of a great Pinot Noir. All right, my number 3 is Maggy Hawk Pinot Noir, Anderson Valley. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Maggy Hawk. Yes. I like this one. This one is one of my favorites.
A matriarch of Pinot, quite frankly. She's outstanding. That is terrific. And there's a lot of chatter about Anderson. This is an area that is fairly remote. There's not a lot of non-contiguous parcels that exist. So patchworks of very expressive and entertaining Pinot Noir. That's really cool. There's a cool, swath of good producers, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm interested. That was number 3, huh? Maybe I would have.
That was number 3.
Maybe 1 or 2. Could have been a top, but.
Okay, but see, my number 1 and 2. See, here's the thing. I've drank and had Maggy Hawk before, and it's been an amazing wine. It always pops up. It's hard to find. It's very difficult to catch, especially on a restaurant menu, which I think for you beverage buyers, if you can get one, I mean, there was only 460 cases made of this particular vintage of 2017. But if you can get them, this would be a premium and elite wine, I think, that you could put on your your upper end Pinot Noirs for your for your menu for your restaurant. I think if you can find them, I think that's the big key. But yeah, I always love it. But as I said, Four Graces is kind of just one of my favorites, and it kind of falls in there. But anyway, let's go to number 4, and that is the Long Meadow Ranch, also an Anderson Valley pick. This is a 2016 though. So what do you think about? And I want to ask you, when you get into wines, because like the Maggy Hawk, they're saying, or their recommendation is that wine is good. It's a good drinking window all the way up to 2025. So that's another 4 years on that vineyard, or on that vintage. What are your thoughts on letting a Pinot stretch out that far?
Well, I think the first thing we try to consider is there ample storage, the correct type of storage for it? Right. I mean, on one level, I'm hoping that there is some sort of climate control that really render the wine in a good space, right? That gives it the opportunity to age consistently and to age appropriately under the right condition. And number 2, it kind of depends on how you like your wine, Paul. If you want some of the more explosive fruit flavors up front, then drinking younger is there's nothing wrong with that. When
Yeah.
you do allow a wine to go on what they're recommending, for instance, towards 2025, and you're approaching that 8 to 10, year window,
Yeah.
you will see a decrease in fruit, and you will see an increase in some of those tertiary earthy flavors that come forward. And to some Pinot fans, that is their, cat's meow.
That's the
And that's
holy
cool.
grail. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's the holy grail.
There's also, I would say, one kind of cool caveat. A lot of people love Burgundy, France, and I'm one of them. But I started to really enjoy drinking Burgundy at a younger age.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find it all true necessary to hold these wines forever and look at them from this 20-year mark. So sometimes drinking fresher is nothing wrong with that. However, can they be held? Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you like.
All right, so again, number 4, Longmeadow Ranch, Anderson Valley, Pinot Noir, 2016. This price is coming in at $39 a bottle. It's another solid pick. I feel like, the good thing about this one is it has a little bit different flair for me in sense that it's got, some more cinnamon notes, a little bit of earthiness into it that is a bit different than some of your fruit-forward wines. So if you like that, that's a good one to go. Number 5, Peter Zemmer, the Rollhutt.
Peter Zemmer, not as familiar.
Okay. Well,
No.
Peter Zemmer, Rollhutt, Pinot Noir. This is my value pick. This is a 2017. It's a $19 bottle of wine.
Okay.
And the reason I love this one, to me, of course, is that you're dealing with a French wine. It's got a tremendous fruitiness to it, but at the same time, this particular, especially this particular year, has an amazing body, and the flavor profiles they kind of explode. For $20, because I was trying to, with my top 5, pick something that was really affordable, and this was one. Even though there are a lot of good affordable wines that are on the top 100 this year from Wine Spectator that I got really close to. I was kind of back and forth. I had about 3 in the bundle of my number 5 pick, and Peter Zemmer is where I fell. All right, so you're gonna have to try that one, Dan. You got to get it.
I will. I'm gonna put this on radar. Yeah.
Yeah, get it. It's inexpensive.
Listen, teach me, Paul. Come on.
Whatever. All right, so that's my number 5. I've got your list coming up. You're going to start off with what?
Paul Hobbs is in my glass right now, and this is the Gold Rock Estate. So I start there. Annapolis area, north of the Fort Ross Seaview, about 5 miles from the crest of the ocean, and amazing Pinot, multi-clone, different type of rootstock in the ground, and beautiful Gold Ridge sandy soils. So a lot of that sandstone that rises up from the Pacific Ocean in terms of the minerality that's expressed, and beautiful Pinot. I can understand why Spectator has picked this out as a standout wine for the top 100, but also the way in which Paul crafts this Pinot and our team of winemaker and vintner, it's just extraordinary. Polished, delicate, great tannin management too. So it has the lift and aromatic components of violet and essentially this fresh black plum and red raspberry. And then it's very kind of silky and elegant on the tongue. So I love this about the wine. Acid is in balance. It's a 2018 vintage, good year, and it can go longer. I do think this is one that, because it is at 18, I definitely want to see this in another 2 to 4 years. But currently, as you pour that glass, you will see just how manicured and polished that wine really is.
I love the presentation. You've set this one up as quite a winner. Here's my question. For this one, what was its rating from Wine Spectator?
It wasn't, I think it was number 51 of the top 100, but I have to see what the point score was specifically. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. So this being an interesting approach toward, is this something that's available now? Can you get to it?
It is being released in March. So it is a kind of a preview, if you will, of things to come. We do have some 2017s in the market currently. And then, this is going to make its debut, which is just fantastic. We're really excited for it. and a great addition. So currently, as you know, we usually make Russian River Valley Pinot. And now this vineyard being in the Sonoma coast is a great juxtaposition between the two styles, right? It's really a good pendulum swing. Yeah. There's
the
a lot
nose
of,
on this is amazing.
It's really seductive and attractive. I mean, it has this, as you mentioned earlier, violet, right? I think that floral expressions in Pinot are just not only expected, but when they come across, it's magnificent. It's unlike other grape varieties in that regard, and I think they're really expressive and beautiful. So it's there.
Wow.
And I think
this is a good one.
Yeah, the thing that
I
we
would
do
struggle
really well
with this one. I feel like it almost needs to be on my top 5 already.
It should.
Amazing. The finish on this too. The tannins are not super powerful, but it's got a very unique finish on the back palate. I mean, that is perfect.
We think it really picks up a little bit of like sea salt and sea breeze. There's almost a little savory, salty note to it. We think anyway. I think that's really an interesting. That helps.
I definitely pick up. Yeah, I think I pick up the sea breeze. That I get.
Yeah,
I love this. So this right here, available soon from Paul Hobbs, and man, this is going to be a good one. I think this is going to kind of, and something I've noticed that you guys have been doing. We were at Capitol Grill. I saw you guys on the list, and had not seen you on there. I guess maybe the last time I was at Capitol Grill, I did not recognize a Paul Hobbs, but I saw you guys on the list here recently. So is this something that you guys are getting more strategic about and going into some of the finer dining restaurants and getting some action?
Absolutely. You know, Capitol Grill had been a partner with us in the past, but on a smaller level. And these last couple of years, we've really bolstered our presence with them and their wine program. So you'll start to see more readily available Paul Hobbs selections on the list.
Yeah. They have a program there that they used to have, and I'm not sure it's available still again, but it was I can't remember if they called it the unlimited pour or something where it would pair with something and you'd get a menu item and you have this, basically it's just ridiculous amounts of wine. But you know, very, very popular. And it also, the reason I like those things when a restaurant does that is it opens up your patrons to explore. And for wine tasting, to me, that's the number one thing you have to be doing. And whether you're on the side of selling on a restaurant or even retail, is somehow getting your patrons to explore new things, because that's how great wine discovery is done, which is, I'm getting ready to discover something new right here. What am I looking at here?
So this was a one that I fell in love with about a year ago, and this is from Matt Taylor, and it's a single vineyard expression out of the Sonoma coast as well, not too far from our Gold Rock estate. And so this is called Komorebi Vineyards. It is Cuvee Kaela, after his wife. And it's a Pinot Noir 2017, and it is a little different than how we make our wines, right? And when you open this, Paul, you'll see it's a little more pale in color. It has a really cool earthy grip to it that I describe more as iron ferrous and rose petal tea, dried florals, almost like potpourri. It's really a beautiful wine. So anyway, as you pour this, I think that this demonstrates just how special that Sonoma Coast Northern Territory really is, because you can get really kind of singular expressions of Pinot from a very small space. And much like Burgundy or great areas that do this with Pinot Noir, I think that more people are finding these type of examples in the Annapolis corridor and the west coast of Sonoma. So also close to the ocean. The difference here is he is 100% whole cluster in the fermentation process. So the grapes do not come off the stems. They're left intact. And I think it drives, it's a very aromatic and charged expression of floral, of fruit, whereas the Hobbs is a little bit different. It has more black fruit to it. It's a little bit denser.
Yeah, you can definitely pick it up.
Bingo.
Now, so the lightness in Pinots, some people like a lighter Pinot Noir, and then there are those like me who like a deeper, more rich Pinot Noir, via Paul Hobbs.
Sure.
or a Four Graces is kind of has that element to it.
Or right in the
but
middle.
with
Right.
with this, your thoughts on is that something that enthusiasts should be looking at in terms of true color of Pinot Noir on whether or is it just, hey, you just figure out the grape and the vineyard and you're going to be fine?
It's a great question because it does come into some personal preference.
Yeah.
One thing you can do, Paul, read the bottle on there and see what the alcohol is on this Pinot Noir that you're drinking right now.
Okay, 12.32%.
That's low.
Hello, Sammy.
Yep, very low. And when you look at the Paul Hobbs, for instance, you're going to see closer to that 14 marker.
Yeah.
So I think to your question, people that like a lighter Pinot, sometimes color and alcohol can be a little similar or related in that sense. And if you want something a little bit more generous, a little bit more bolstered, spin that bottle around, look at the back of it and see where it resides. Because at lower than 12.5, 12.3, it's very delicate, essentially. It's definitely an anomaly. Not too many producers would do something like that. But I do think that this wine is balanced, has harmony, and for that reason is really a cool look at how diverse Pinot Noir can be.
Mm-hmm. This is a really great tasting wine, and I like the notes on it are very solid, but at the same time, like you said, has a delicate approach to it. This could also be one of those wines that when you're looking for a Pinot Noir to pair with certain kinds of menu items, so that's usually a big issue with a chef, is Pinot, in many cases, kind of has its lane. And in many times, chefs or even somms won't deviate from that lane too much in recommending a Pinot Noir for a meal. But with this could kind of open up the lane a little bit. You could really kind of expand things out.
Yeah, so for this, you hit the nail on the head because while the Paul Hobbs I might consider more with lighter poultry, even different cuts of beef, I like the Matt Taylor wine with ideas like vegetarian tasting menus where you have
there you go. I love that.
Eggplant and cauliflower and lentil. I want that with lighter fish. I want that with a couple more, kind of creative, perhaps menu items. So I think this does tailor well, pardon the pun, to a couple more, chef-driven or chef-inspired menus that are off the beaten path.
Yeah, for sure.
Even pasta.
Okay, so we got your first two out of the way. Not that was a hard thing to do. That was lovely.
Yes.
This is it's a hard job, but somebody's got to do this. It is what it is. What are you picking at number 3 for you?
So at number 3, I have a really cool wine from South Africa called Storm. The Storm is from the Hemel-en-Aarde Valley. It is a wonderful producer that is called Vrede, or the Cuvee is called Vrede. South Africa, speaking of price points and where we can go, there's a good movement within French varietals and a couple of outliers, but we see Chenin Blanc, we see Chardonnay, we see Syrah, we're seeing Pinot Noir, and they are very, very good. So this in particular, 2017, is all an expression of Pinot Noir on much more of a shale soil with a little bit of clay and kind of that limestone influence. And I think outside of France and a couple other areas, I like what they're doing here. You'll find the retail on this right around $35. And it is a great example of what South Africa can produce in terms of high value for really good reward in the quality.
I have found South African wines to be quite surprising to me. Because I'm always, if you're looking for, especially in Pinot Noir, if you are looking, I haven't had the Storm, but I've had some other Pinot Noirs from South Africa. They're always a bit surprising and usually they're hard to find. Again, another scenario which if you're out at restaurants and you're trying to find great Pinot Noirs, usually the typical winners are going to be, California, Oregon, some of the solid, unless you go to France. But I like the fact that you brought a South African wine in here. Good job. I like it. Now it's one on my list that I'm going to watch and go get.
Yes, there's another producer, Hamilton Walker, that I also feel is very approachable, does great work, and even has a project in Willamette Valley. So they've connected the dot from South Africa all the way to Oregon now, which is very cool.
Yeah, interesting. Number 4 for you. What do you got?
Number four for me was a wine out of Australia, and this is done by Giant Steps. Giant Steps is in the Yarra Valley, and I think the
I know
Yarra
this
is,
wine.
yeah, this has been a
This
great
is a
kind of,
good one.
it is picking up a lot of momentum. Australia, much like South Africa, is
Yep.
exciting. The price points are there, the creativity and the education is there. Paul, people sometimes ask, how do I explore great wines? And I always look to the universities. If you think about where these students are
That's a
being
good idea.
educated and then where they
Yep.
find employment, there's great resources in New Zealand, in Australia,
Yep.
in South Africa, where the education is just world renowned, and they're coming out making wines that are just classically delicious and awesome. So this in
Yeah.
particular plays off of some ancient bedrock soil inside of Australia. It has some very cool elevation to it as well, and it's right on the coastline. So it does see some really good influence from the ocean. And all these factors combine to do a cool climate area that is focused for Pinot and Chardonnay, but the Pinots that are being produced from Giant Steps are fantastic.
I love this wine. It was one of in my hopper of selections. I'm glad I didn't choose that one now since you had it on your list, because I was kind of blind to your picks when we said let's do this. I like this wine. It's one of those that, if you are into Australian wines, there are some amazing picks down there. If you are a beverage buyer, you need to start exploring what those guys are doing down under, because it's definitely interesting. Dan, when you look at terrain though, Australian terrain, quite a bit different than what we see in California and Oregon, definitely different than France. It's a completely different science down there for those winemakers. Does it take a special winemaker to kind of make it work?
I think so. I think that anyone that wants to make wine on their given soil needs to be somewhat of an expert of that, but also
Right.
to go work abroad to understand how these soils really do change the decisions that you're going to have to
Exactly.
make. You know,
Yep.
I think it's all about decisions. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to put oak on this or not? Am I going to leave this
Right.
on the skins for this many days? Am I going to pump over or punch down?
Yep.
What type of clones of Pinot would do well in this environment? What type of root stocks are best for the pH level of our soils? So it makes a big difference. I think it's
Yeah.
very much an important conversation to have. And I think that's why it's exciting, Paul. There's never been a better
Yeah.
time to get into wine than
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, a lot of new stuff, a lot of new vineyards, and also a lot of exploration. I think that we're seeing from some of the current, legendary winemakers that are doing amazing work. So that, to me, it's almost like there's a revival or a recommitment to some of these approaches toward winemaking, which I love to see in the industry.
Yes.
It's pretty cool. Number
Organics is
5.
one of them. Yeah.
Yes,
Number
exactly.
5,
Number 5.
I chose a Pinot Noir out of Germany. This is the Keller.
Hello.
Yeah.
I love this one. Keller.
This has been crazy.
Woo.
So Keller is usually, because it is Germany, Riesling. And
Yes.
they're in the Rheinhessen. It's a fairly flat, gentle undulation area. But they have some very great old vines of Pinot that really kind of date back a very long time through influence of its neighbor, France. And for that reason, there's a couple pockets that do Pinot Noir really well.
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
when people talk about Pinot, don't overlook Germany. Germany does a good chunk of production being red and being Pinot. And for that reason, we're seeing old world, quote unquote, flavors and styles. And the prices are pretty attractive because there's not really this emphasis on Grand Cru and, higher end levels, although this particular wine might classify for it. But the wines are very, very good. And for that reason, I like it as an quote unquote old world alternative to Burgundy that gets people in a cool conversation about, Pinot Noir.
Yeah, I have a good story on this one. Where I found this wine, ironically, was in France. And I was at a small, which is, it's almost sacrilegious to do that. But I was in France, and we were at a very small restaurant, and the owner, who was, I guess he's kind of a somm at the same time chef, he was kind of letting us explore some different wines, and he brought Keller out the Vineyard Keller. And the first time I saw it, I thought, well, where in France is this? Because I couldn't quite piece that together. And he says, don't worry, this is not a French wine. This is a German wine. So it was almost like I was going to have some kind of different expectation. But
Right.
he's a great chef, and I love to go see him when I'm out there. But he brought that out to the first time I ever tried it was there, and of course now I try to find it everywhere I can when you can get your hands on it. So nice pick, number 5. Wow, that was down on the list.
A cool combination of the 2 California wines and a little bit of an old world with Germany and 2 newer areas being South Africa and Australia. And I'd also tell people that there's some exciting Pinots being done in Argentina, specifically in Patagonia, and also on the hills of Uco Valley, which are gaining some momentum. Chile is also doing some great stuff out there near just north of Santiago.
A lot of their work. Very good.
Yeah, and many people have probably had a New Zealand Pinot from Central Otago or Martinborough. There is just no shortage in our globe today of Pinot, but they're getting so good. Everyone is sharing ideas on how to cultivate the vine and how to make the great Pinot. So right now, the sharing of information is just really exciting, and it's benefiting the consumer at the end of the day.
Which is why we picked Pinot Noir to kind of lead our top 10 wine category series, which I think you guys are going to love. If you guys, of course, now you've got 2 top 5 picks. Hopefully you'll be able to take these, whether it's back to your restaurant or back to your own, your own storage of wine and your own collection. If you're an enthusiast, this is, I think, a great roster that you guys can go out and explore. But again, like Dan's kind of alluded to, there's just so much new stuff out there, and there's a lot of really great Pinot Noirs. The hopper was probably, when I look at it every year, I kind of look at top 10s and where the Wine Spectator, trends are going for the previous year. And this year was probably the most difficult for me to try to pick 5, and then, come together. So anyway, Dan, it's been great having you on. As usual, always fun. This is a great one from Paul Hobbs. Thank you again for sending that into the studio. Amazing. Can't wait to see that on the shelves out there for sure. Thanks for stopping in.
My pleasure. Cheers, everyone.
All right, cheers to you. All right, so all of you tuning in here on Taste Kitchen, as you know, we try to cover a ton of really culinary and beverage stories that kind of help you, whether you're an operator, you are a maker of something, an artisan, whether you're in the culinary side and you've got a great food product, or maybe you're on the beverage side. We're doing a lot of different kind of product reviews this year. Wine is one of them. We will have some more series like this in some different varieties, and I think this is going to be something hopefully for restaurant operators and makers that are going to be looking at trying to add to their list and make it very unique. This hopefully can be great for you. Make sure and hit the subscribe button and tap the bell, because that'll give you notifications on great content right here on Foodable and right here on Taste Kitchen. If you are on YouTube, you will notice we've kind of merged our network, now called the Paul Barron Network. We've got some other stuff popping up over there, including Taste Kitchen, and a lot more food, beverage, and technology topics. So a lot of new stuff happening here at the network. Thanks for stopping in. We'll catch you next time on Taste Kitchen.